The Box Seat, brought to you by our stable of sponsors. Hi everyone, welcome to this edition of Your Box Seat. Yes, brought to you by our stable of sponsors. Michael, very busy show ahead. It's been a busy week in harness racing too, as I say hi to you.
Yeah, big hi to everybody around Australasia, especially to our Australian viewers. Nice to have you joining us. It's an unusual one, Greg. It feels like a long time since we've had big racing on a Friday at both places, Alexandra Park and Addington, but we have maybe the best trotter in Australasia at Addington, and all the young gun type 3-year-old horses, Millwood Nike and Merlin at Alexandra Park. So that's a real warm-up for what's about to unfold. We have derbies, oaks, the race by grins taking more shape. It really is a week which is going to kick into and have a big impact on some of the majors lying ahead, Greg. But great work by you. You've been able to get us a couple of stories about the people behind the scenes. One of the greats, Luck Chin, will be turning up today on the box seat. Also hearing from Brad Reid, who has been on an expedition around North America. Some really interesting stuff, Greg. I've seen both these interviews. Looking forward to you bringing them to our viewers today.
Yeah, so what can our viewers expect on Your Box Seat today? Alexandra Park will review what happened last week, look into that 7-race program they have there on Friday night. Addington with a cracking program there to coincide with Alexandra Park. We'll have a look at what happened down south and what's ahead for them this week. Brad Reid, yes, the Harness Link CEO, will drop on by. We'll hear more about him. The Northern Awards were on in a couple of places, and our hand-milking best bets. But let's get straight back to Alexandra Park. An upset it was. Nicholas Cage came to the party, had a nice barrier draw, was in front and dominated. You'll note Akuta outside the leader, and of course Copy That, fresh up from his Australian campaign, storming home. Post-race we'll hear from co-trainer of the winner, Nicholas Cage, and also how Ray Green thinks things are shaping up heading towards the race by grins.
Nicholas Cage goes all the way to beat Akuta. Copy That from last was sizzling late, but third's his best.
Well, and that was awesome. Were you surprised?
No, I wasn't surprised, Mick. It's hard to, I was pretty confident going into the race, but it's worrying when you're racing what he was racing. But he is a speedster. He's come up just awesome since his trip to the Derby just made him. Everything went wrong from down there. He was growing. He didn't get round. But he learnt so much. And so no, I was quietly confident. But when you Copy That's in there, you just sort of don't want to be too confident.
I watched him before the race in the parade ring, and he's got a bit of an attitude, hasn't he?
Oh, he's got huge attitude, yeah. He often gets called at home a rotter. He's just got some bad traits, but we have to put up with those.
His mum, Helena Jett, I believe, was a similar type of horse, and again, a very good horse.
Yes. When I was down in Christchurch, I was staying at Bob Butt's, and we went over to Greg's and Nina's, and Greg said, whatever he's doing is just what his mother did.
All right. She went on to be Group 1 placed. Where's the immediate future for Nicholas Cage? We'll get further down the track later, but I believe his owner, Grant Inan, has a spot in the race. If he said to you, I want to put my horse in the race, what would you say?
Well, we'd have to, after tonight, consider it. We're trying to protect the horse, thinking he's a year away, but I guess he's a 4-year-old, in the old time he's an autumn 4-year-old. We'll have to go and have a look and talk to Grant and see how he comes through and what's happening.
You've had good horses. You've won an Auckland Cup, you and Andrew. We better include Andrew in this. You guys have won an Auckland Cup. Where does this horse sit among the horses you've had?
Well, I always do all the work with this horse. He's a one-person horse. He's just, he's not easy, but I've got my ways I deal with him. He would be the best horse I've ever had anything to do with. Andrew's won the Auckland Cup with Flight South. She was special because she was freaky on her day and a lovely horse. He's not a lovely horse, but his ability and his ease of gait, it's just amazing, like the speed he's got. And so, going forward, if we can just keep him in New Zealand, and hopefully he's got to get a standing start, and I think he will. We've just been scared to line him up to the tape because it's stopping him when he works unorthodoxly. He's a beautiful jog horse. He take leaders and a kid could drive him. But once you put the hobbles on and go to work, it's all on. So he goes behind our motorbike behind a frame, and you know, we worked him 2-1 at home on Tuesday behind the frame, and the old bike, I don't think she's been so fast. She got up to 60 k's and he was pushing it.
So just for those watching at home, so the motorbike on your track, like a mini
It's an ATV. It's one of the little truck. It's
like
a
and almost like a little mini mobile situation, and you go around at 2-1 for the mile.
Yeah, so that's...
This is new to me, this is good.
Yeah, so it's just something we, you know, quite a few horses will work them with the frame behind the sulky, but we didn't have a GP fast enough, really. So we just come up with this idea, and he loves it. It just makes life so easy.
It must be exciting. I mean, you and Andrew always have a good horse. You've had a good horse every year for 20 years. But it must be exciting to have a horse who's just turned 4 who's this good.
Yeah, it is. But horses haven't made me cry. Sometimes I've come in off the track and I don't cry easily, and I say, Andrew, I don't know what we're going to do with him. He's just kicked everything to bits and I can't, you know, this and that. But he's over all that now. And
now you can have some tears of joy.
Yeah. Well, and I've got to give a shout out to a good friend, Hadley Searle, and the lady in Christchurch that does the seahorse, because they've kind of sponsored him and gave me some to trial, and it's been huge on him.
So explain to us what that's about.
It's a probiotic, and it's like it works on the hind gut, and with him it's just really settled him down, and we've tried lots of quietness on him over his time, but this one's brilliant.
Well, it works. Your horse works. The motorbike thingy works. It's all working at the moment, so we're looking forward to seeing where Nicholas Cage ends up.
Yeah, no, so are we. We'll just take him home, and won't be a problem. He always eats. You know, nothing knocks him like that, and I think Matty's in love with him. He might want to sleep with him tonight, I think.
All right, you told the public via the media you were going to go back at the start more than likely and hope the horse ran on. That's what happened.
Exactly, yeah, he ran on well.
Okay, are you happy with what you saw tonight heading forward for Copy That?
Absolutely, perfect.
What's the plan to get him fit and healthy and happy to the Race by Grins April 14?
Just keep doing what we're doing, and he'll have one more start prior to that race. So yeah, we'll be here in 2 weeks and give him another hit out.
He looked fit tonight. He looked pretty tight. Will he be able to be at his peak with one more start before the race?
I don't see why not. Yeah.
What about for the fans of the horse, or futures punters, as he's carrying on behind us here? He's having a day out of the races, he is. And about the bleed, I know you didn't think it was that serious in Victoria, but it was still recorded. So is that a day-to-day thing with him, or are you confident back in New Zealand it won't be a factor?
Well, no, I don't think it's a factor. I think we've sort of got it under control. We're managing it quite successfully.
Is it a tricky thing to manage?
Not really. Like the first time because it's mandatory in Victoria, which is not anywhere else in the world, for them to scope favourites that didn't do what they're supposed to do. Nowhere else does that occur. So yeah, we've come from the first bleed over there to win the New Zealand Cup and break the New Zealand record and so on, and we've done that twice. So as you saw tonight, he didn't race like a bleeder tonight, and
on the subject of
no worries at all over that.
On the subject of internal issues, I believe you're getting back to normal after your pretty bad incident in late November. You've had the bag taken off and you're starting to become the Ray Green of old. Not that I'm saying you're old Ray, but I'm saying the Ray Green of old.
Yes, no, I've been one of the lucky ones. There's a lot of people go through similar things, and it's not so happy. The outcome's not so good, but I've been lucky and everything's gone well.
So great to get the insight, particularly from Lynn Neal there, Michael, about the handful that is Nicholas Cage, which probably fits with the name and the actor. 53.6 off the front, always was going to be hard to run down, but he's a horse now that's elevated himself into the Race by Grins, as we found out this week.
Yeah, typical first race back for the Akuta type horses, and even copy that. They warned everybody, they told everybody in all the formats, the Herald, Harness Racing New Zealand, we're going to go back at the start here. And once they went back at the start, Nicolas Cage was in the box seat. Was he good enough to take that role and turn it into a win? Yeah, he was. And good enough to get him into the race by Grins. So that information coming out on Monday. He is in the race. Barrett Holmes and the local syndicate have taken them, or taken him. Can he win the race by Grins? I don't think so, but I think it's a big step in the right direction for him, and maybe he'll surprise us again. I think, crucially, Gregory, barrier draws will matter for him more than probably any other horse. He gets on the front, up against the marker pegs at Cambridge, he can become a factor because his improvement curve has been very, very steep. Where it takes him, I don't know, but I think he's going to be an open class horse for a long time here, Greg, and a very welcome addition to the open class ranks.
Absolutely is. Let's have a look at the market for that. $21 if you want to back him to win the race by Grins. Akuta, I still thought he was pretty good. $3.50 the price for him. Self-Assured we haven't seen this time in $4.20, the defending champion. Old Town Road $4.50, BD Joe $5. Copy that off the back of what Ray Green had to say there. There'll be a few takers at the 6s, and then we're out to 11s for both Krug and Battery Clips, and $21 for Alta Wise Guy. Similar market, Michael, for the Auckland Cup, $3.50 favourite Akuta there, but there's a fair bit to happen between now and the end of the open class. Well, it's not season as we know it these days, but the end of May anyway, when they'll be having a break before building towards another Cup Carnival.
Yeah, just an update on some of these horses. Akuta, he looked fat and pretty to me in the parade ring. Not at all disappointed by what I saw, but he'll need to go to the next level next week. So not this Friday, the Friday after is the City of Auckland free-for-all. He'll be back. I presume Nicolas Cage will be back, and Copy That will be back. Also Self-Assured. He trialled last week. He'll trial again this weekend at Pukekohe. So he'll go into the City of Auckland free-for-all fresh. Then there's a mile race, the Cambridge Mile, the week before the race by Grins, and that's where he'll go next. Spoke to Mark Purdon last night. Will 2 races be enough? He said for him it will. Akuta will need the 3 because he's a rounder type of horse, but Self-Assured still on track for his defence. The question will be who drives him. Does Blair Orange stick with Copy That, or does he become the driver for Self-Assured, where we think he's going to be doing a lot more driving for the All-Stars heading forward? That's one question. 7 horses taken. I'm absolutely certain Krug will get a spot in the race by Grins. And then we start talking 888, Kango, who's back this week at Alexandra Park, and Alta Wise Guy would seem to be another horse in play. Still, this time last week, I didn't think Nicolas Cage would be in play, Greg. So it's a race which is changing almost week by week, and a race which is at this stage, I think, really even.
Yeah, absolutely it is, Michael. Go to Cambridge Raceway, you want to buy your tickets. Also, if you want to buy your tickets for the sweepstakes, so an opportunity there for you, $100 a ticket, 2,000 tickets, and your chance to win 50,000 if you're lucky enough to draw out the eventual winner of the second running of the race by Grins. So cambridgeraceway.co.nz. And of course, Mitch James will be there entertaining you after the races as well. Let's go back to Alexandra Park. Friday night, it was the farewell to Temporale Trot, and Special Way appropriately getting the job done. That's it in the hands of Morris McHenry, getting to the outside of David Butcher's Yellow Hat. Storming home Double Delight here, but Special Way's always been pretty talented. Slipped into the 1-1 about the 600 metre mark and finished it off nicely, Michael. Really enjoyed Bruce Sherwin's calls over the last couple of weeks. He's getting right into the harness caper.
Well, he's a true professional, Bruce. We're lucky that Aaron loves his harness racing so much, and Aaron does a wonderful job on the north. So this isn't about that. It's about the fact that we have a very, very talented second caller. George has been doing some of the calling at Cambridge, and of course, George used to be an amateur driver. So to have 3 people at that level who can drop into those race meetings is a huge deal. But yeah, Bruce has been ringing me the night before and asking a whole lot of questions, which a professional will do and it's so cool to see him doing that. That's a rarity, that trot. Not often at Alexandra Park you have horses who are last and second last on the home bend at the 300 metre mark, running first and second. Double Delight's a good mare. I hope she holds together. She has the occasional knee issue, so let's hope the Harness Jewels winner can stick around in open class for a while. It'd be really tempting to breed from her next season. And Special Way, as you said, aptly trained by Michelle and Bernie, who trained Temporale for a lot of his career in the race named in his honour, beating Tony Hurley, who owned and trained Temporale early in his career, running first and second. So an apt quinella to the Temporale trot.
Yeah, absolutely it was. Let's get into this preview for Alexandra Park on Friday night. I thought we'd go back and have a look historically at some of these feature races as we build towards them. And here's the Orange Agent winning this brilliantly, the Peter Brecken Memorial Ladyship. The great thing about her was this is when she arrived, basically, Michael. It was back in 2014. She sat parked in this race throughout, broke 240 and ran away and beat Classical Art, Democrat Party, Fight for Glory, Katy Perry and Linda Lovegrace was amongst the beaten brigade. But, she was very, very good.
And she left an absolute cracking colt at the sales at Karaka just recently.
A couple of 100,000, wasn't it?
Yeah,
purchased by Barry Purdon.
Beautiful looking horse. Yep, when you look for those mares, so many of them have returned and left good foals. Katy Perry's left a Derby place getter in Major Perry. So, good mares or good fillies win this race, and there's a very good one this week. I can't see Millwood Nike being beaten. Two of the dangers, Carlua Flyby and Advance Party, were both disappointing last time in vastly different races, one at Menangle, one at Alexandra Park. Here's Millwood Nike returning for her 3-year-old season. She didn't beat much here. Seclusion, the horse who ran seconds, a maiden, but she did it pretty easily. She's actually $1.30 this week, Greg, and I think you just put that through all your multis. I just simply can't see how she'll get beaten with her ability to go forward. With the doubts over Advance Party, I just don't see anybody getting in her way, Greg.
No, absolutely. I'm the same, Michael. Carlua Flyby is back as we have a quick look at that market. Carlua Flyby at $657 for Advance Party from the inside draw, and then pretty long the other three. Before we get into the preview of the boys' young guns, understand Frank Cooney has had a bit of a health issue, and Frank's just one of the great guys of Northern Harness, and really sorry to hear that, and wish him well with his recovery, Michael.
Yeah, so reports coming out from Garrick Knight on Twitter last night, and Garrick's a respected journalist, so therefore I would presume this is true, that Frank had a stroke last week. Now, of course, Frank had a severe head injury suffered at Alexandra Park maybe 10 years ago now. I saw him at the sales. He was in good form, lovely, lovely man, a gentle type of a guy, wonderful horse person. So to Anne and everybody in Frank's life, we're hoping for good things, and we'll try and keep you updated on that without, of course, invading Frank's privacy over the next couple of weeks and months.
The Brecken Farms Young Gun Heat for the boys. Here's Cole Chisel. What you won't see in this video, fullback on the fence. The reason why, Michael, he had a gallop at the start, but I thought he was pretty good after that.
Look, he was good here after galloping, and round about here you can see he's not going to catch the leader, so he's not overly exerted. Went to the workouts last week, came from 3 back on the fence at Pukekohe and won very well in a 56-3 last half. I think he'll win. I think he's a pretty good type of a horse, and the winners of the races so far, the other Young Guns heats, aren't here. Comes into barrier 3, small field. He's a top bet.
Yep, he looks a great bet in that. Onto the Garrard Sires Stakes heat, and this has got a lot of depth to it, hasn't it? Including Merlin. We'll have a look at him winning the New Zealand Bloodstock Harness Million. He is against basically many of his rivals here, Michael, and he's copped a bad draw again. His run of draws has been unreal this time in, outside of front row 3 times, and the outside of the second row basically the other 2. I know by virtue virtue of his ability and some of the preferential barrier draws, he was always going to draw in those positions. But yeah, to cop 12 this week won't be easy for him, considering Sinbad's got barrier 1. Should be hard to beat. Charlie Brown's a pretty fair sort of a horse, but Sherlock is also off the second row this week.
Yeah, he's a horse who always cops bad barrier draws. He's had a remarkable run. You're right, some of them preferential, but even in big races, when they're not pref, he still gets bad draws. So he might get a good one in the Derby, and that might be the winning of that. Be really careful with this race, punters. Really careful. The Derby's next week. It's worth a lot more money, and it's the race these boys and girls want to win. This week they want to win, but no one's going to be giving themselves a filthy big headache to win this week. Don't expect Merlin pulling 3 wide, sitting parked and having the bat pulled at the 400. That might happen, but it's probably not going to. So like last week, with the copy that and Akuta, when we warned you as much as we can, just be careful on this race. Doesn't mean Merlin won't win, because he won that from a tricky draw. But Greg, we've seen this a lot. The race, the 3-year-old race, which didn't used to be this race, it actually used to be often the 3-year-olds would contest against the older horses, but the race the week before the Northern Derby is always a trick. Yeah. It's been tricky for a long time, and a lot of very good horses have got beaten in it and then come out and won the Derby. That's all I have to say. Yep.
What about a bet this week then? Does that make Sinbad the one to beat from his draw then, and therefore the 3:30 would seem pretty fair because he stormed home last week?
Mark Purdon got back from Australia on Tuesday night, and he's going to work these horses on Wednesday morning. He'll be doing that as we talk now, so I haven't rung him, but that's no good to you. I will ring him. It'll be on Harness Racing New Zealand, on NZ Herald. It'll be everywhere where they have harness racing stories, his exact opinion on that, as will Zachary Butcher's or Barry Purdon's or Scott Phelan's opinion. We'll deep dive into this because we don't want to have a secondary guess at it now and tell you what the trainers are thinking. But predominantly, if you're a harness racing person watching this, hrnz.co.nz, there's previews for every meeting, and there'll be a preview for this meeting, and it will be concentrating on that race.
It will be, and of course it was 2 weeks ago that they last clashed. All right, let's get to Addington Raceway, because Friday night is an excellent card. We're only a couple of weeks away from the Group 1 Fred Shaw, and this horse will be as hot as you like. His name is Muscle Mountain. He's come up $1.35 this week. I know that'll interest Michael in terms of multis. Yes, he has to come off the 30 metres, but he smashed the clock here, breaking his own New Zealand record, sat park for the last lap to do it, and beat his stablemate and race rival again, Midnight Dash, pretty comfortably. 30 metres shouldn't be enough to stop him this week, Michael.
I don't think so. It's 30 metres, but he's only getting or giving 10 to Midnight Dash, and he's clearly more than 10 metres better than Midnight Dash. So he should win. It's tempting to run him through your multi. I won't, Greg, only because it's a standing start. You know, there's horses in front of him. Things can happen, and I don't think it's worth $1.35. Whereas usually in a mobile trot, when he's going to roll to the lead and bolt in, he's $1.20. So I won't be chucking him in my multi only because traffic could be a concern. But do I think he'll win? Probably close enough to 90% he does.
Yeah, he goes round the Group 3 Lamb and Haywood. Race number 9's a really good race. Off the front, we've got Heisenberg and Beach Ball. Here's Beach Ball in front. He was first up since the Derby. Went great. Had to come from the outside draw and battled on really solidly. Heisenberg charged home and got him. Beach Ball hasn't had a standing start race day before, and I watched his trial, Michael, and I didn't really like what I saw. More importantly, he's got barrier 1, which won't aid his chances of stepping away. I'm not saying he won't step away, but you've got some really good standing start exponents. Samstown, Homebush Lad, Mighty Louie, all just behind him off the 10 metres. I love Beach Ball as a horse, but I think he might be vulnerable this week. And when you think about Samstown's record at the Country Cup level lately, I think he's won 3 of his last 4. Homebush Lads as well. This should be a really good race.
Yeah, really even, isn't it? I'm not sure what to make of it, and the standing start's so crucial. Guessing whether Beach Ball will step or not, I have no idea. I saw the same video as you, and often horses need 1 or 2 stands and then they get their heads around it. But you're right, it's horrible when those horses rush up behind you really quickly. That tends to put the trotters off more than the pacers. Once pacers are pacing, most of them stay pacing. whereas the trotters are more likely to gallop when a horse comes up alongside you because they try and go quick and go with it. So he's going to be an open class horse, Beach Ball, but I don't know enough about the mentality of the horse to know whether that starts this week. Interesting race. Good version of the race. Mighty Louis done nothing wrong, Greg. You can make a case he's going as good as any horse in the South Island. But that was unusual for Heisenberg. That's not usually how we see him win. So the Duns, I tell you what, they've got 4 in the race and they're doing very varied things with them all. The Soundstown type horses, Greg. And gee, I tell you what, they're training horses who aren't superstars, but they're performing at a very, very high level consistently every week.
Yeah, you're right about that. They lead the premiership by 10, and you talked about Blair Orange before and decisions he's got to make. He's driven 14 winners in the last week and is now 6 in front of John Dunn in the Drivers' Premiership. Gee, things can change very quickly there. Go back a race and we see the fillies and mares go head-to-head, Michael, and we see the return of the Oaks winner. Her name is No Matter What. This is her at the trial. She was pretty good. Bollinger and Daredevil beat her home. That's her out in the middle of the track in the hands of the Group 1 winning driver, of course, in the Oaks, Olivia Thornley. I thought she was pretty good here. Look, she'll be vulnerable first up, but she has that class factor. But she's up against some mares that have been racing really solidly for a while now. Kikarangi Blue's one of those. Dancing Desire. Life's a Beach is much better than her last start might indicate. Another excellent race, the 8th on Friday night.
Another warning race too. Fresh up. She's a funny type of
She's
a
got
horse.
a few tricky steps, as we know.
Yeah, she had. And you're not sure they'll want to send her fresh up. And if they do, you know, do you get undone by a rival kicking up inside you? I'm not trying to tell people not to bet on harness racing this week because there'll be some good bets out there, and Cold Chisel's one of them. I just think there's a few tricky races around.
Yep.
And her development's going to be really interesting because there's this huge gap at the head of the mares ladder, Greg, and somebody's got to end up being the best mare in the country. Maybe All American Lover's the best mare at the moment. I don't really know. But somebody somewhere is going to grab that mantle, and I think she's the horse who maybe has the motor to grab that mantle. I just don't think she needs to be grabbing it this Friday night.
No, and the other horse returning is the very smart trotter Mystic Max. Here was him at the trials, just a 3-horse trial. Sonoma Tyron in front, and that's him getting through on the inside. And you talk about warnings. Spoke to Blair Orange yesterday after the Manawatu meeting, and he said, I think you'll definitely need one. Nazareth, the Derby winners, fresh up into this as well. But you've got the mobile specialists, the likes of Martha Stewart, who will take some beating, and Paul Nairn has 2 tangata in it as well. So as Michael said, there's a few of these races that are quite tricky. So buyer beware, or in this case, punter beware. Time for us to take our first break here on Your Box Seat. Brought to you by our stable of sponsors. Still plenty to come on the other side.
Round the bend in the Derby, they swing for home now, and it's Sleepy Trip the leader. High View Tommy, Stellan Cullen getting through on the inside. Rocket Star, Viadanamo's wider out then to Manhattan Rusty, but Sleepy Trip's holding on down to the post. Sleepy Trip is going to win the Christian Cullen New Zealand Derby, and shooting through Tintin in America.
Last Thursday, we lost a colleague of ours and a guy who was loved by everyone. I know it's a bit of a cliche when someone passes away, they say he never had, or he or she never had, any enemies. But Michael Guerin and Trevor Wilkes, he absolutely had none. He was the greyhound caller for 43 years in the Canterbury region. He often covered for the likes of Rion Murtha. He called a couple of derbies in harness racing. That one won by Sleepy Trip, but also the derby won by Pay Me Christian. He took great pride in calling those Group 1 races. And yeah, like I say, he was a friend to everyone. He was a man who I never went to the Christchurch Casino and he wasn't there, so I'm not really looking forward to going back because he was such a part of that institution. But just one of God's gifts, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's unusual when you talk about someone who's just passed away to be smiling, but Trevor always made me smile.
Yeah.
He's just one of those. He was the sort of guy you hoped you had as an uncle, just lovable, just happy, loved to chat, loved to drink, loved to bet, which he was notoriously bad at. But what he did love was calling dogs and horses, and he would sidle up to you and great to see you, and let's talk about this all the time. There was no downtime with Trev. There was no lack of passion. And to turn up to Addington on a Monday or a Tuesday, not the Thursday big night stuff, week in, week out for that many years, before that to QE2, to be part of the Greyhounds when they weren't even a factor for most people, Greg. Let's not forget, Trev was part of the Greyhounds back when they weren't even at TAB meetings. Just a lovely, lovely man, and the world is a slightly darker place for his departure, but every time I hear his name, I don't know why, my mind just goes to being at the casino and drinking at some inappropriate hour of the morning and Trev being
there.
Exactly the same person as he was 12 hours earlier. So that's how I remember him. Next time I go to Christchurch, I'll go to the casino, I will get a shot glass and I will have a toast to our little mate. And thank you, Trev, for being part of our racing life.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get a chance to farewell him appropriately at Addington Raceway on Thursday, so I'm sure there'll be a big turnout for Trevor Wilkes. Let's continue on with our show, because that is what he would want us to do, and go back and have a look at the Alabar Classic down south last week. Michael, she's smart. Flying Alley's her name. Purchased for $50,000 by now another person who passed away, the Tony Parker Tardina draft. His daughter's involved in this, Melanie, and her husband Mark Kingsbury, and they've got a real smarty here. She won very comfortably. It's the Nathan Williamson colours, Craig Ferguson doing the steering, and she is now 2 from 2.
Only surprise about this is she paid $2. Remarkable, because she sat parked and bolted in against exactly the same field start before. Sometimes you need to see things a few times before you cotton on. Well, she's a pretty good filly. Cotton on to that.
Absolutely, and she continues on her winning way and is likely to do so. We'll talk more about the passing of Tony Parker shortly. Got you covered, got a deserved victory, Michael. This time in the Team Teal colours. Sam Otley doing the steering. Been racing great for ages, all the way back to the Methven Cups and those races leading into the Cup. Trained by the Whites, held off a fast finish from Wheel of Fortune, who's a smarty and with a bang. And those horses go around this week in the MLT Wyndham Centennial Cup. They're celebrating 100 years, Michael. Russell Ferguson telling me they're having a dinner the night before. Big celebration there. He's labelled Da Vinci, who of course is his son's horse, and these horses go around in the Centennial Cup, so it'll be a big old time for the Wyndham Club.
Yeah, good on them. One of the clubs who's been a huge part of harness racing in this country. Another huge part's being the Team Teal campaign. Finishes today, being Wednesday, and well done to everybody involved, from Harness Racing New Zealand to the clubs and all the ladies involved and all the trainers who have supported it. Those country cups down south are just wonderful races, and I wish they had bigger fields, but I know there's not that many semi-open class horses to go around. But yeah, good to see that horse who's raced in stronger fields get the job done, Greg. But lots of moving parts to that. Wyndham, Team Teal, and of course the winner, and that circuit continues on Saturday. Yeah,
Young Quinn Raceway, of course, and they've got a Southern Belle Series heat. They've got a couple of other big races down there as well, a Supremacy heat, so good luck to them. Michael alluded to this earlier on. I had the opportunity to sit down with the CEO of Harness Link, find out more about that. His name is Brad Reed, and what he's been up to on a big trip he made alongside John Curtin to the States. Brad, wanted to find out a little bit more about Harness Link and your role with them, so give us some background.
Cool, so as you probably know, I worked for Harness Racing New Zealand and formerly the New Zealand Standardbred Breeders, and I took a bit of a leap late last year and going to work for John and Harness Link. It was a really exciting opportunity. Obviously they were celebrating their 20th anniversary, and John has really been looking to grow the website, which, it started out pretty simple in its origins, but has continued to flourish as the only global independent platform for harness racing. So yeah, it's something that I was really excited to come and be a part of.
Yeah, and that's what Harness Link is. It's basically your one-stop shop for any fan that wants to know what's going on around the world, because like you guys, last week it was like 14 or 15 journalists across about 6 nations. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, so look, that's I guess the exciting thing with Harness Link is it covers the global aspect of harness racing with North America, Europe and Australasia. We've got 15 staff globally and looking to expand that. And you know, in terms of the breadth of journalists, it's really incredible to learn about them having come on board. I mean, guys like Steve Wolfe and John Berry, Hall of Fame journalists in North America. I mean, you go into the Hall of Fame in Goshen there in New Jersey, and these guys have their photos on the wall. So I mean, the calibre of the individuals that we've got on the writing staff is enormous, and I think that really shows in the content we're able to put forward.
Now, JC is not a big man for the camera, but his life in harness is quite extensive and you know, goes back 4 and 5 decades.
Look, and that's something, you know, like I grew up as a kid with in the days of Auckland Reactor. When I first really got excited about harness racing, that's when I can say that I started using Harness Link as a platform, and I've learned, you know, I've worked closely in the breeding sector, so you get to know John pretty well with his involvement in the stallions, but it's pretty phenomenal, his career as a guy who'd been involved in harness racing at every level, dating right back to the 80s, I think, and you know, he's responsible for bringing shuttle stallions, the first lot of shuttle stallions from North America into New Zealand. He's been his involvement with yearling sales. I mean, we talk about big breeding drafts with the Breckons and selling drafts of 40 upwards. I mean, in the 80s, I think 87, John took a draft of yearlings himself of 150 to the Claudeland sales. So, I mean, as we know, he's facilitated deals like Lazarus and Auckland Reactor, and I think he sold something like $80 million worth of bloodstock over his career. So, I mean, it's pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely it is. And you recently got that opportunity to head stateside with him. Gee, that would have been an education.
Yeah, look, when I first took the role, I mean, I was talking to a few people, like the Stuyvens, people I'm close to, about the opportunity, and I always remember John saying, you know, like, you'll never know where things will go with JC, and sure enough, within 6 months we were off to America. And I guess, look, as personally it was a really exciting opportunity, but also for the website, because you know, it's been 20 years since its infancy, and no one has really been on the ground in North America specifically targeting advertising. I mean, I think it's fair to say, JC would probably say this himself, that it's really survived over the 20 years off the back of his export business. And look, while we still do really well with advertising, 43% of our users globally come from North America. So for the opportunity to get up there and get in front of some of the studs and major players and sell the story, I mean, yeah, it was really cool.
Tell me about some of the farms you went to.
Yeah, so look, we were really lucky. We started in Ontario. It was the first time I'd seen snow in January, so in that sense it was quite striking. But we got to Sealster Farms first day and met the horse that's on everyone's lips at the moment, Bulldog Hanover, and Stratham and the family there at Sealster Farms. We were very lucky then. We went down to Tara Hills and met David Heffring, who is standing horses like Sports Rider and King of the North. Travelled down through to Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania. We went to Sugar Valley Farms, we went to Diamond Creek, Blue Chip Farms, Southwind Farms. Real highlight for me getting to meet a horse like Muscle Hill in the flesh, having bred Bolt for Brilliance. Incredible given the stallion roster when they bring up Muscle Hill and then Walner, Tactical Landing, even horses like a Kerry D. We're fortunate enough to get to a lot of the tracks. We went and spent time at the Meadowlands, see how they do things there. Scioto Downs, Hurrahs. Western Fair up in Ontario as well was another really unique track to get a visit at, and then also I guess the trainers and the horsemen.
And you caught up with some expat Kiwis, I understand.
Yeah, like Chris Ryder. It was really cool to see him meet his son and his wife and see how they do things there. Obviously Calvin Harrison, who John's really close with, and I mean he's had a pretty incredible career over there. Went there 50 years ago and never come home, and he's trained some really top horses. And we're also really lucky at Yonkers to catch up with the likes of Lauren and Shane Tritton and find out how they're getting on over there and just how different it is racing 6 days a week and having to pay staff, or like, you know, it's just really interesting to hear about the exercise.
And having good success too.
Having great success. Like they've got an Irish trotter over there at the moment called Harry Nose that's going quite well, but obviously Locknova Art, and it's been quite incredible with the site, just seeing how people are just wrapped up in following that horse and seeing how he's going on, and I think we're going to see some really exciting things from him in the next 12 months.
All right, we know the name Joe Mascara so well, and the investment that he had in New Zealand harness and the number of horses he bought in the 80s and the 90s and beyond was enormous. So John's footprint would be all over North America.
Well, that's it. I mean, for a guy who spent 40 years selling bloodstock, I mean, for all intents and purposes, you don't intend to sell a slow horse, but as we know, things can go wrong. And that's one thing that stood out, was just the relationships that he's built over there. It'd be very hard to be in this industry for that long without burning the odd bridge, but I think for John, like, that's a testament to him, is just how well respected he is up there. I mean, the New Zealand breed itself is now very well respected, but John himself, it was really striking how all of the major stud farm owners and trainers and people we went and saw, they went out of their way to come and see us. And you know, I think if I'd have gone up there on my own, I may have struggled. So it was really cool to get up there and do it with him.
All right, how's the industry up there?
Look, I think it has its challenges, just like our own industry, but I think they're doing really well in the sense, particularly Indiana and Ohio. I mean, one thing that's really noticeable is the influx, or I guess the investment now coming from the Amish community. I mean, people might take for granted here. I mean, you think the Amish just drive around in horse and carts and you know, live pretty frugally, but they're people that are very, very wise with their money and have a lot of it. And you know, with the horse being such a fundamental part of their culture, I think it was only natural in some ways that they did get involved in the standardbred industry, and you know, that's had a massive part in helping a place like Ohio and Indiana, who have grown from, I think they were breeding about 6,000 mares collectively over the last sort of decade. They're now breeding 7,500, 8,000 mares collectively, so they've been able to lift their broodmare band by around 2,000. You know, the tracks and stuff, it's hard with, the feeling I get, the sports wagering's really had a big impact up there. So as we've sort of found here with fixed odds betting and stuff, it has been tough in terms of what it does for tracks and the likes, but they have there's just a lot of, obviously with 450 million people or however many there are in North America, they just do everything a bit bigger, don't they? So yeah.
Absolutely. Great learning curve for you. And of course, John's still heavily involved in the stallion ranks with the likes of Cap Midnight and Lazarus, who we're really getting excited about seeing his progeny on the track.
Yeah, look, I think Jack Trainer the other day had the first Lazarus Down Under winner, which was really exciting, and it'll be cool this week to see how his little filly goes. She's in the Gold Tiara series, so got our fingers and toes crossed. Don't think anyone's under any guys. He's got it all before him. I mean, it's really hard, especially up in North America with some of the stallions he's competing against, but I think a little bit like himself, we might see some of the best from his 3-year-olds up there this year with them coming through, and hopefully some of his 2-year-olds step out and do the job here. Obviously, Captain Midnight, John's always been a big fan of the Captain Treacherous line, so he was really excited to stand that stallion, and I think he had his best season down under here. He's also, I mean, he's got a foal coming by out of Shartin, the world champion, which is another horse John had a bit to do with. And another couple of the stallions, I guess, is the Warner line. John's been really forward-thinking and progressive there to sort of help secure and syndicate the first 2 sons of Warner to stand at stud, so hopefully they can come down under next year. King of the North and Temporal Hanover, so they're the two that I guess through, John hadn't been able to get up to North America with COVID and the likes, but doing some diligence here, he could see the damage that Warner was doing as a first season sire, and had the foresight to go and secure a couple of top sons of him, so King of the North and Temporal Hanover. And the way they syndicated, I guess that's just a sign of the times with the trotting gate up there and how well that stallion's going.
All right, recently you wrote an article around the Yonkers International Trot, the $1 million race, and watching Muscle Mountain. And you know a little bit about the breed in this time of in trotting, because of course you bred Bolt for Brilliance, but you believe that this might be the time to strike with arguably our fastest and quickest trotter over the short course this decade anyway. For
sure. Look, yeah, like I was lucky enough to get up to Yonkers and learn a bit about the history there, and obviously they have a $1 million international trot, and it coincided with the night that Muscle Mountain came out here and broke his own New Zealand record.
When he went 55.2.
Yeah, turned 2:21 for 1980, and it made me have a look at the times, and the international trot, $1 million US, they're running over a very similar distance, albeit on a half-mile track. And when I compared the times, I mean, compared to last year's winner, he's actually gone 1.5 seconds faster with only 20 metres less. So there's no doubt that he'd be competitive, particularly with his gate speed and the fact they only have one front line. I mean, he's in a position where he can just put himself in a race, and we know how quick he is. So look, I had a quick chat to Ben and Greg about it, and look, it was really exciting to hear that while it would be heavily dependent on Dobby and some things have changed since. Sunday Sun's retired, so whether that changes the barometer there is yet to be seen, but there's little doubt that he would be competitive.
Yeah, well, hopefully that might be able to unfold, although you're right, the Sunday Sun News may have put cold water on that somewhat. Everything seems to be at his feet at the moment, doesn't it? 750,000 people view Harness Link. That was another milestone. So I guess what you're saying is, if you're a harness racing lover, you've just got to utilise the site.
Yeah, like what struck me when we got to look at the analytics is the average time spent on the website is 12 points.
That's per year, by the way.
Yeah, per year. So 12 minutes is the average time our users spend on the website, and the average page clicks is 9.7. So I mean, if you're a Kiwi that follows harness racing, it's a really good opportunity to really learn about North America. And I know our North American constituents, they do the same with Down Under, and it helps them keep following the sport. It's just a great platform in that respect, and as you said, 750 unique IP users per year. That's enormous. I think if you combine like probably 3 or 4 of the governing bodies, they'd be lucky to get close to that sort of web traffic. So as far as a platform, yeah, it's a really strong one, and one that people should be looking at using.
So Michael, really interesting to hear from Brad Reid. He's a smart guy. He loves his breeding, obviously, but that would have been a wonderful trip alongside, well, I suppose one of the icons in harness racing, particularly up there in the United States and Canada, and John Curtin. Geez, played a big part.
Massive part what John's done, and John's a person who, because he deals in horses, you get your critics, people who don't like you because you didn't buy their horse or you did buy that horse, and that's how it goes on. So is Harness Link, because the media don't tend to like the other media. My stories go on Harness Link for free via Harness Racing New Zealand, because the more people they go to, the better. And that's what they do. They've got a giant international portal, and it's really important. It's important for the buying and selling market. It's important for the stallion market. What Brad just did is something I would suggest, not everybody, because not everybody has the money to do it, I understand that. But if you get the chance to go to these places, go. It gives you such a global perspective on what harness racing is when you go to North America and you see where the stallions fit in and Dexter fits in and how it all works in together, and how the New Zealand horses sold up there fit into Yonkers on a race night. So, yeah, not everybody's, Greg's, going to have the opportunity to do that. I respect that, but it's great for you to talk to Brad so we can have a little insight into where our part of the ecosystem fits into the international scene. So yeah, Brad's a real asset for Harness Link, and Harness Link is doing a huge job for harness racing worldwide, because there isn't another worldwide site. There's not somewhere else, Greg, which is a one-stop shop. So I think it's something which is easy to take for granted. I don't think we should.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Muscle Mountain now too. He's $1.50 basically for every race he can start in, probably in Australasia. So whether he gets on that international track, who knows? Short break for us. On the other side, we've got some awards to have a look at.
Well, I suppose all you people here saying, who the hell's he? I might have seen you, at the hospital, because I was at Waikato Hospital for 41 years. You'll excuse me if I don't remember you. I usually have a mask on my face, and if you're in intensive care, well, you're probably unconscious anyway. It's interesting that, I was 41 years at Waikato Hospital working as intensive care specialist and anaesthetist, and developed the pain service there. And when I retired about 8 years ago, my colleagues all gave me a farewell dinner, but the CEO didn't even come down and shake my hand. So at that stage, he was overseas, I think, with some new secretary having a bit of a flare-up. It's interesting that this award came by purely as a chance, because in '74 I came back from overseas to start up new intensive care at Waikato Hospital, and it was a 24/7 specialty, and of course, there was nobody else doing it, so basically you had to be on call all the time. And it was the days before cell phones, of course, and had to be handy by phone all the time because I was on call all the time. So after 1 year living in town, I said to my wife, oh God, I've got to do something. I can't just sit at home and just be waiting for the telephone to go all the time, especially the weekends and night time. And so I decided I had a bit of interest in harness racing, and I thought, I might go ahead and try my training. See, so I bought a little bit of land outside between here, Hamilton and Cambridge, and started to train a horse. And at that stage, before I went overseas, I had a share with my father with Derek Jones. People who might be interested in harness racing would remember Derek Jones with Hands Down and Blossom Lady winning the New Zealand Cup and all those other good horses he had. And I said to him, well, Derek, look, I might start training. You got a horse there that I could learn from? You could send up to me? And he said, oh yeah, I've got one here. It ain't much good, it'll never win a race, but it's quiet and you'll learn something from it anyway. See, so he sent it up to me, and I pottered around with this and took it to Claudelands. Claudelands had a racetrack then before it was closed down. And anyway, I run 5 races with it, and I thought, geez, this is an easy game, this. So, and then anyway, after a while I thought, well, and then I started to breed them, and I thought, gosh, I'm doing all the hard work, I'm breeding them all, I'm breaking these young horses in and having to do all the work every morning for them, and I thought, and then I'd pay somebody to go out and just have the fun on it. In 3 minutes he'll win a race, and Blimino gets a percentage and walk up, have all the fun. And then I thought, oh, bugger it. I said, look, why not drive myself and have all the fun? And so I went and got my trials licence and finally got my race drive licence and won my first race in Cambridge in 1984. And from that started me on, see. So anyway, see, so that's what's kept me going. And it's been a great involvement, and I'd like to thank all the sponsors here for this, and it's been a fantastic privilege and a wonderful evening here tonight, and thank you all.
So he had the crowd in the palm of his hand, Michael, at the Norwood Rural Sports Award. There is only one luck chin, and when he was up there with Jason Wynyard and Ruben de Jong, who was the other Lifetime Legacy Award winner, it was an incredible experience, over 400 people in that room. All right, from those awards, the Northern Awards were held over the weekend, and they had to wrap things up over the last 3 years. Here's just a smidgen of what was handed out. Copy that. Has gone back to back. Sonny Glennis and Bolt for brilliance in the trotting section. Barry Purden, the trainer, back in 2020, and now Stephen Amanda Telfer. Nikki Chilcott got acknowledged for her over 500 training wins, and dedication and appreciation went to Joe Stevens, which I thought was pretty appropriate. Go to Cambridge, their website, to get all of the results of those. Michael, I mentioned before the passing of Tony Parker. Here's his best horse, Auckland Reactor, winning the Auckland Cup and giving them a panelling over the likes of Monkey King and Changeover.
What a wonderful horse he was, and look, when you think of Tony and Ann Parker and their business, you often think, oh, well, they bred Auckland Reactor, that's great, but they bred hundreds of horses, and they sold hundreds of horses which have given other people joy, Greg, and every single one of those yearlings and weanlings and foals would have been given the same love as this horse. So yes, he is the exclamation mark on their breeding career, but Tony passed away last week, and without people who put that much love into the game, Greg, there's no game because there's no horses. No. So sad to hear of his loss. I spent a bit of time with him during the Auckland Reactor years, and there was a lot of pressure then, Greg, and they handled it really well, and then when the horse was no longer part of their lives, they handled what they did next really well. So a much respected person, and our condolences to Anne and the remainder of the Parker family. Yep, and that Flying Alley win was very appropriate, wasn't it, last weekend? I'm sure she's going to continue to fly the Tardina
flag. What about racing this week? Manawa 2 have the second of their days, 5:29 the start time there on Thursday. We've talked about Alexandra Park and Addington, 6:44, just the 7 races. Probably need to have a chat about that another day. 5:06 for Addington with their 10. Wyndham, their big centennial meeting at Young Quinn Raceway, 12:14 for their 10 races, and 11 races coming out of Banks Peninsula on Sunday, 10:12 the start time there. The hand milking best bets of the week, got the business done. Graham Hand last week. We're close to 4,500 now for breast cancer. Franco Cornell race 2, number 2, into Fortify, who Blair Orange tells me is very smart. Race 6, number 1. Lumen Kaylee, I've gone for race 3, number 5, and you're big on Cold Chisel, Michael. So multi those up, and hopefully we'll get another return.
I reckon I've had 3 losses in a row, and 3 weeks in a row where something odd has happened. There's been like a wild attacking race. There's been a lot of attacking races in the north recently, Greg.
Yeah,
there's actually been lots of really high pressure racing, and it's really good fun to watch. So I don't mind that, but yeah, about time I got up my arse and picked a winner. Cold Chisel, one of the great bands of my youth, my teenage years growing up in Greymouth. So love the band, really like the horse. Hopefully we get back in form soon.
Yep, absolutely. And just a quick mention too, congratulations to the Roger James team and everyone who got in behind that Cyclone Gabrielle fund, because that was one heck of an effort from the other code. All right, Michael and I will catch you again in 7 days. The Box Seat brought to you by our stable of sponsors. Harness Link for your worldwide harness coverage. New Zealand Bloodstock Standardbred, where winning begins. Brecon Farms. Stonewall Stud. IRT, it's your horse and our passion. Australasian-wide Garrard's Horse and Hound. Renwick Farms. Lincoln Farms. Harness Racing New Zealand. And the clubs Addington, Ashburton, Alexandra Park and Cambridge.